How's it going, Pablo?
It's going great. Episode 14, and we're going strong here.
Yeah. I'm really excited about today.
Yeah, today is about summer book recommendations for teachers.
Yeah.
So this is exciting. We've read a lot of books. Okay, full disclosure here, Wes.
Full disclosure.
While I love to say I read a lot of books, but I essentially listen to most of my books.
That's okay.
How about you?
That's okay. I probably listen to 70% or more.
Yeah, so I'm using, right now, Audible. I've been using Audible, Amazon's application for books, and it's going great. You can consume. The thing I love about it is you can consume it almost any place, anywhere, anytime.
Yeah.
On the plane.
Where's your number one place to listen?
What do you mean by that?
So for me, it's when I go running.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, location. Sorry, yeah. That's good. You know what? My car. On the way to work, I'll get 15 to 20 minutes in. On the way back, and I listen at 1.5 times speed.
Oh, yeah, always.
Yeah, so, and you can hear, it's fine. It's a good speed, and you can get through the books a little bit faster. So
I like to play like a minute at the regular speed so I hear what the narrator sounds like, and then I just speed that up as fast as I can take it.
That's a good tip, because in some of them, I started doing this probably after my third or fourth book. I have not done that, so in certain cases, I probably don't know actually what the actual reader sounds like.
Yeah, because at 1.5, it's going to sound a little different, but...
Yeah, but it's not quite at chipmunk level.
No, it's not.
No.
Yeah. But it's amazing how fast you can actually take in that information. I mean, I think... Like, sometimes I can go up to two times. Depends on the book, though. Yeah, so we're going to try to make this short and sweet. And what we're going to loosely try to tie these books back into education, or just have a conversation around the books that we like, or some of the books that we want to read this summer ourselves. Absolutely.
And in one of the books, there was something that came up for me, which was the term or the words, stretch for insight. So I think that's important. While you're reading... Don't always think you have to be in that mode or that medium that you're trying to learn about.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like if you're a photographer, you don't... Well, if you're a photographer, you don't necessarily have to read photography books.
Oh, yeah.
Right? That's what I guess.
Okay,
so
stretching outside your...
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we could clarify that.
Yeah, that's helpful.
good, because a lot of times I think I'm saying something profound.
It was profound.
No, it's okay, because I think that's the way I roll.
One of the book recommendations I made in the last episode was a book by Jenna Fisher, an actress, and
this is true.
Her actor's survival guide was really helpful in terms of giving me a new perspective or a new lens on teaching and my path through it. So
perfect. So reading as a student, how was that?
Yeah, I enjoyed reading a lot, and one of the things that happened during the summer is my mom would take my sister and I to the library every week, and at that point, West Covina Public Library, you can only check out 3 books at a time, and so we would pick out 3, and then every week we would go back and turn them in and get another 3. So that was a pretty consistent practice growing up, and I loved reading. I think for me, the books that really are memorable were the kind of fantasy books, C.S. Lewis, J.R.R. Tolkien, so Lord of the Rings, the Chronicles of Narnia, and I love the fact that there were multiple in the series because you can kind of stay in that world. So I was a pretty avid reader, and even then through high school, and I think definitely after high school when I got into college, I read because I had to, and I didn't just read books for fun.
Sure.
So college killed it.
Dang it.
Sad.
Interesting.
But it came back.
Yeah, interesting you say that. College is when I pretty much started reading. Like, I honestly do not remember very many books.
Huh.
Well, any books except for one.
Okay.
And I kept it for a long time. And it was in high school.
I'm curious.
It was just Muhammad Ali's autobiography.
That's great.
And it was in Ocean View High School. I don't have your book anymore, so if you're still looking for it, I apologize.
Please remove the
charge.
charge.
It was one memory of a book that I actually read.
That's great.
I just was not into reading.
Yeah,
I could read, actually, but I just chose not.
Yeah.
I could not stay in a book. And I'm sure there's many people like that out there in the world. But hopefully if you stick with it, then I started reading for learning because you needed to.
Yeah.
And really, it's been mostly as an older adult that I've really started to enjoy reading. And maybe it is because I'm listening more than I am actually reading. But
And I mean, and there's probably agency. You're picking books that are highly motivating to you.
Totally.
I feel like there's a certain point where I was taught like you're supposed to read and complete every book, and it was not until probably more recently than I cared to admit that if a book didn't captivate my interest, I learned I could put it down. But
Right.
I was way too old to learn that lesson. You know, I was kind of a rule follower, I guess, or something like that. Or I figured the book is going to have something valuable eventually.
Right.
But some are. I'll just steal your word. Or they're snoozevilles.
Yeah, snoozeville. So, and I do appreciate how some books are being created now. Like Tim Ferriss, I think that's one that you might speak about today, and like Tool of Titans.
Yeah.
That you can go to any chapter,
Yeah.
and it's a valuable piece of information that you're actually going to pick up,
Yeah.
and you don't have to do it chronologically,
Yeah.
which I like that style.
Yeah, I've seen kind of a
And
trend.
that's intentional.
Authors saying, "Here's how you should read this book, or could read this,
Yeah.
maybe not should," and they give you kind of like that guide from their point of view of how to jump around and give you permission to do that. I think that's great.
Cool. Now, how about reading as a professional? Like, we talked a little bit about reading as a student. You kind of hinted at, hey, college kind of killed it.
Yeah. So I didn't really, until I started teaching, I really fell in love with books on a whole deeper level. And so I would have books that I became very intimately familiar with, and I would know the passages and the quotes from them like it was a geography, like it was like the town you grew up in. And that was just, that was something I really loved, like Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man by James Joyce. I had a great instructor in college. It's a difficult book, and I taught it in AP English, and I had such a love for it that I think it carried over, even though it was a difficult book, and some of my students were challenged by it, but learned to see that the kind of the hidden gem behind the difficult language. But for sure, Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston, Shakespeare's plays, Romeo and Juliet, I taught that over and over as a ninth grade English teacher.
Nice. I mean, that's...
Yeah,
making me feel insecure here.
No. But there were books I honestly... hate's such a strong word, but there were like American classics that I felt like people are just missing it. These are terrible books.
So that interests me. So you, and I know you're hate, maybe a strong
Yeah.
word, but you strongly dislike. Does that mean you actually read the whole book?
Oh yeah, and taught it.
Wow.
So I'll throw it out
okay.
there.
Wow.
So To Kill a Mockingbird,
Yeah.
I think it's a great movie. The movie is an amazing classic. The book has good parts in it, but I think structurally it's flawed. And like I think people go, oh, it's about racism, so it's a very good book. I think that's just ludicrous. You know, I mean, the book has to be well made and it has to be well written. And she's a good writer. It just wasn't consistent all the way through. So it'd be like if you have a good burrito and some parts aren't good. Well, it's hard to say the burrito's good.
Okay. All right.
If I'm being critical, you know,
No,
send
that's
me
okay.
some of your thoughts.
No, that's important. I mean, yeah. Anyways, let's move on. That's good
What
stuff.
about you as a professional?
Yeah, as a professional, you know, I was thinking again. While my reading was more because I had to, you know, in terms of both. I don't know about high school if I had to because I think I did what I needed to do, bare minimum. Cliff Notes was a very big deal in my
you
life.
used Cliff Notes in high school?
Maybe.
It's not.
Am I
it's
a bad
not bad.
person?
It's not bad.
Reading summaries of
I
things
would
sometimes
say
helps.
you're resourceful. That's
Yeah.
how I would describe that. Yeah.
I just wasn't interested. So whatever I could do to get the job completed, like what is it? Better done is better than perfect.
Yeah.
Well, I was far from perfect,
Yeah.
but I was done.
Yeah.
So it just didn't interest me. It really didn't. And there was a lot of stuff that didn't interest me. But I will say, what is it? Harry Wong's First Day of School or First Day of School. Interesting book that was handed out to. I'm not saying it's a super great book.
Yeah.
But it was interesting for me in the profession that I was getting into, like, hey, here's a book to help you out to say professionally, here's some of the things you might want to think about.
Yeah.
as a teacher.
Yeah.
And so I appreciated that.
Yeah, for
I appreciate
sure.
it. I think the number one thing that comes out is Harry Wong shaking kids' hands.
I feel
yeah, good
compelled.
morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. But
Yeah.
it's that personal touch. That's powerful. Even
Yeah.
if it's that one thing,
Yeah.
can be super powerful and transformative for teaching and making relationships. So, anyways.
And I recollect that book. I think it was very practical. Like, you weren't wading through it going, where's the good stuff? Like, he was like, I'm going to tell you kind of the secrets. Yeah.
So outside of that, let's talk about some of the books that we've just enjoyed reading either recently or the past few years or whatever. It doesn't matter. I think we have more than what we're going to talk about.
Yeah,
we're
for
a little,
sure.
I don't think the word's aggressive, but
ambitious.
Ambitious. It's still an A word.
But if we're aggressive, we can complete this ambitious task.
Yeah, so we're going to get into... Want to talk about your first book?
You know, I think the first one I'm going to go with is Tim Ferriss's Tools of Titans.
Ooh, Timmy, I love this book.
And the reason is not actually because of this book that I'm going to go there first, but his early book, I think it was his first book, 4 Hour Work Week, was about productivity hacks. Do you have it behind us?
No, it's not behind us in my house library, but yeah, I thought it might be there.
So it really changed the way that I thought about productivity and getting things done, and opened my eyes to using virtual assistants. And because of that, the whole premise of the book is figure out what you have to do in your business and then outsource the rest, and then travel the world and enjoy your life.
And I see you doing that. I mean, we work together. Things that I never thought about, even though I've read parts of the book, I see you applying those things, in our work environment. So that's pretty cool.
And it actually changed my view on education when I went to work for a virtual school, because then I realized, I'm not going to have seat time with the students. There's no, and this gets into another book I'm going to talk about, why work sucks and how to fix it.
Crazy
I
face.
love that. So I bought my
the
staff.
title.
I bought the book for my staff 2 summers ago.
Okay.
And we read parts of it together. But that's about not focusing on seat time or being in the office time, but on focusing on results. So and that's kind of what I learned from Tim Ferriss in those early books is what are you really responsible for, and what does it take to get it done?
Cool.
So this one is, as you said, set up so it's like mini chapters. I'm just going to go to one that I love.
Yeah.
Here's Scott Adams. So if you don't know Scott Adams, he's a cartoonist. He created Dilbert, and so but he's written books, and so so the way this book was created is Tim interviewed these people on his podcast, long form podcast, hour plus, sometimes 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, and if I had to make a recommendation, check out the Jamie Foxx interviews. They're really good.
Nice.
But he just takes out like the meatiest parts of the interview and just puts it in a few pages. So if you're not the podcast person, you just skim this, and it's just amazing. You can get these, and many people I would have never met or even thought I was interested in. And you can just get a glimpse into their genius and what makes them so powerful and successful.
It's a great book. It's a great book. Again, Tool of Titans by Tim Ferriss. Again, that'll be in our show notes.
Yeah, what about you?
Mine, first one, it's the reason I picked this book. It's the first book that I've ever read in a single sitting.
Wow.
Right, I've never done that. Like you heard earlier, I barely read. Right, I'm reading clip notes, and all of a sudden it's a short read too. That's probably
okay. And what is it?
That helps. This is Crush It by Gary Vaynerchuk.
Yeah.
So if you're not familiar with Gary V, as he's known out there in the socials, he's just an entrepreneur. Came from Russia, worked in his dad's liquor store, just blew up, helped his dad's liquor store become some multi-million million-dollar company, wine business, and now the rest is history. He's got a social or a media company, and they're doing great things. And he's on. If you haven't heard of him, just look up Gary V. Something will come up, and you'll be able to follow him. But this
prepare
first
yourself
book,
for some F-bombs if you
watch
his videos.
He's a little out there,
He's
but
he's
very passionate. And this book is completely about. This book right here is completely about passion and passion driven, and I know that passion I think sometimes gets a bad knock because you can't just follow a passion that's kind of empty. Like it's the fire that burns, but what's left? But I think it's a starting point. Like it's a starting point and a thought process that you need to go through. And Gary Vee, I mean, some of the stuff that's in there are practical advice on building your personal brand, which as a teacher, you probably should be doing that, giving that message, even if it's just for your classroom, building that brand. I mean, there's lots of things in here, but importance of building great content, which as teachers,
absolutely,
we should either be curating it or creating it, and then making the world listen. And I think that's interesting. That's so, to me, there's lots of information in here, but to me, it's like you should put yourself out there in some way, shape, or form, because you matter, kids matter, and it just might change somebody's life.
That's a good point.
So this, I still go back to this book. It's one of like 3 books. I have 3 of the other ones on the back, or 4 books. And his latest one is Crushing It, which is a follow-up to this book. Obviously to make a little bit more money, but it has a lot of good stories on actual entrepreneurs or people, case studies of people who read this book, Crush It, and have been crushing it ever since.
That's such a great, even though you said, it's another book to make some more money, but when you look at, which is okay. That's okay.
That's fine. That's not a bad thing. That's what he does. He's an entrepreneur.
And an author. Yeah. And so to have somebody say, I read your first book and I executed and did this, and now you're putting them back into your second book as like a way of repackaging, revisiting, and promoting other people. Like Gary Vee's got an amazing social media and business presence, and to use it to promote other people. Like I found out about a couple of businesses through there that I was interested in. Great resource. Great resource. And one of his taglines is love your family, work super hard, live your passion. And that has nothing to do with the social media he talks about in here. It's really just a phenomenal way to think about just getting out there and doing what you love to do. Yeah, absolutely.
But I do have a follow-up story in a little bit to something maybe on the other side of that. But anyways.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm scrambling around here for...
what do we got next?
I do want to talk about the Iron Trial, because this is fiction, and it's fantasy, and it's children/young adult. I don't know. I don't see on the spine where it says. It's definitely for students. So it's interesting. It's written by Holly Black and Cassandra Clare. And what attracted me to it is the story that these authors, one was an author and met the other one at like a signing. And she's like, I'm a fan. And then later they end up writing a book together, actually a series of books. So I was just interested in like collaboration on that level. I was like, that's cool. Because an author could kind of say, hey, I got my own stuff. I'm just going to stick with me. But they combined forces. Anyways, so it's very, very hard not to compare it to Harry Potter and all those books.
Okay.
There's
as good. And I would say I didn't read any of the series, but
it's different. It's hard. I love J.K. Rowling and what she did. I feel like she opened the door for a series of authors, many authors, to explore this. But it's magic. They go to a magic school. They're developing their powers. They're fighting evil. One of them thinks he might be evil. The similarities are so close. However, I'll just say the main character has a disability, and for me, that's an interesting thing to think about. It's in every page of the book, and so to put that as a theme out there, I thought was makes it stand on its own to get us to think about ability and disability in a different way. Anyways,
that's cool.
Yeah,
I like that angle.
So I read the first one, and now I'm listening to the second one, which is called The Copper Gauntlet. And I think I'm going to buy the rest and read them, because I can read them in like 24 hours versus listening to it actually takes a lot longer.
That brings something up to me, and that might shorten our episode time. But I wanted to talk about, just real quick, and it's a short part, fiction versus nonfiction. So I read probably 0. I'm trying to think. Fiction. I just feel like I don't read enough already, so whatever I'm going to read, I want it. Not that wouldn't help. No, but that's not true, because that could be practical. There's an end to everything, but
my 2 cents is I read far more nonfiction, but I do read fiction for an escape. And so like these books, like especially during summer, just help you like relax and unwind. And Brandon Sanderson is a fantasy writer. I can't recommend him enough. I don't know how he does it. He writes books that are like 24 hours long on audiobook. I mean, they're like 3 times the length of a normal book. But if you're training for a marathon, like I sometimes am, that book is a great companion for marathon training. And you just get caught up in that fantasy world. So.
Wow, very cool, very cool. Hey, so I got another one.
Yeah,
The Power of Moments. I've actually mentioned it here on the podcast before.
I want to read this book.
Chip Heath and Dan Heath.
Yeah.
Super cool collection of stories of just powerful moments. And in some cases, they're just transformative moments that tell you, oh, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. And what I mean by that is there's one story in here by, I think it's, I need to look her up, Leah, what was her name? Leah Chadwell. I can't read my own writing. But Leah, I just had to look this up again because I listened to the book probably 8 months ago or so.
Yeah.
But Leah this story is, she was working as, let's say, an animal. What's that?
I was going to say, working as a waitress in a cocktail bar.
No. Oh.
That's an 80s pop
song. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay.
It's summer.
She was working in an animal hospital, which she did for about 9 years, I believe it was. But early on, she's always had a love of, or a thought that she loved baking. Like she, always an internal, something that drove her, like, I should be a baker. Let's fast forward. She got an opportunity, was able to start a business. About 18 months in, figured out that not for me.
Oh, wow.
And which was interesting. So what they call it, or what they were calling it, was like a lightning bolt moment.
Okay.
And she's, quote, I wasn't in love with baking anymore.
Huh.
I mean, just wasn't in love with. And so what psychologists call that is self-insight. Like something that you finally, it's a moment, it's a light bulb moment that says, maybe you're not good at this. Like it's self-reflective. Because she became a business rather than, she loved baking for her family and friends. I think she, not a carver, not a molder, what are the people, clay artists, come on, help me out.
Sculptor?
Sculptor, look at that, She was, I think, a sculptor in college.
Oh, interesting.
And so she actually would design certain, like, Disney and different promotional type of cakes.
Yeah.
So she was able to relay that back to her sculpting. And I could see that in designing cakes. But, yeah, she just got burnt real quick. And she realized, and good for her, she was unorganized. She wasn't ready to be a business owner. So that's just one story. That's not the great, like, oh, Pablo, that's a bad story. No, but she failed.
I think
in certain cases she did, but no, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of articulating, there are moments that you should pay attention to. Yeah. And lightning bolt moments, I guess, is, that's a great thing to be aware of.
And more to tie it back, and that's good as a teacher.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the number is still. I think it was around 4 to 5 years. Teachers usually get out when they don't know, and that's a good thing for kids, though. I really do believe that. Like, you shouldn't necessarily just stick it out if your heart's not into it.
Yeah,
that's just not good for kids. There is one other story in there, real quick, that's very much education related. These 2 social studies teachers created a memorable moment, almost year in, year out, by celebrating kids who were. They were sitting at a bar. They were talking about, hey, what? They're looking at ESPN and going, why are these guys being celebrated? Like, because they're announcing where they're going to college. Right. They decided to do that for every student in their high school.
Wow.
And it started from just a couple hundred people showing up to these things to now they're doing it at a local university, maybe Rice University, where there's like 14,000 people showing up or something something nutty like that. Yeah. The number could be inflated there, but it's something 6,000, 14,000. But
The Power of Moments?
The Power of Moments. Great book.
Cool story. I'm going to read it.
The Heath brothers.
You've convinced me.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. Wow. So I have a couple that I'll just throw out. I'm not going to talk about them, but Ta-Nehisi Coates is an African-American writer. He writes for the Atlantic. So he has actually done the graphic novel of Black Panther, and I read a little bit of the first one before the movie came out, but there's a book 1, book 2, and a book 3, which I did not bring with me. And then he wrote We Were 8 Years in Power, and it's about the Obama era. And what's fascinating about this book is just the structure, is he was writing blog articles during that time, and so that's like chapter 1 will be a blog article from right after Obama got elected. And then he'll write chapter 2, and he goes in terms of his mindset now, looking back at what he had wrote, 8 years ago, and then he sort of critiques and analyzes what he was doing right or wrong, or what he should have done more or less of in terms of writing and expressing how he felt about the political situation. So those are interesting books, and I highly recommend him. He's a super, super gifted writer.
Awesome. I will also just fire through, because we are short on time here. Teach Like Your Hair's on Fire by Rafe Esquith. Great cool. Read. It's inspirational on what he did with, I think, 4th and 5th graders, awesome. And teaching them Shakespeare.
Oh, love it.
What? Shakespeare?
Yeah.
That's crazy. And then anything by Sir Ken Robinson.
Oh, nice.
Love all of his books. And also anything by Daniel H. Pink. Good stuff there. I did want to... Oh, and also... we're running out of time. Maybe we'll talk about it in the next one.
You're stressing me out,
I just want to get through this to make sure that... I just want to talk
about 3 more.
Whoa. Yeah. No, What Teachers Make by Taylor Molly. I was going to read a little excerpt, but we just don't have time for that right this second. What else do you got?
So, 20 Time Project by Kevin Brookhauser. It's about how to do what Google did by giving their employees 20% of their time to explore their passions or interests, doing that in the classroom. Which I've done. Work sucks, and it's actually why work sucks and how to fix it. Focusing on results, love that. I was going to read some passages, but I'm not. And one I've had this almost a year. A More Beautiful Question: The Power of Inquiry to Spark Breakthrough Ideas. So and that's by Warren Berger.
And so this is going to lead me to the book I want to read this summer, and I'm going to read. It's called Educated. It's a memoir, and it's by Tara Westover. And the idea is that she was basically born to a survivalist in Idaho and lived up, basically homeschooled. Okay. And everything she learned at home, if there was any learning at all. Brother, I don't know if he escapes, but she has a couple brothers.
Wow.
One troubled brother, and one goes off to college, comes back, and tells them of the new world, essentially, because they don't know anything. They don't know anything outside of their local mountain area.
Yeah.
And she decides to go ahead, and it's a memoir of her also teaching herself enough to take the ACT, eventually becomes a BYU or Brigham Young University degree owner, if you will, grad, and it's interesting story. I just saw it on the new arrivals at the bookstore. Pulled it off the shelf. I'm reading it.
I don't think I've heard anything quite like that.
Yeah,
that's cool.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
Social media shout. Or do you have a book?
No. Well, Full Life, Jimmy Carter autobiography. I'm definitely interested in that. Okay. My wife's got her bookmark in there, but I'm going to take it over this summer. But we do have social media shout outs.
Social media shout out.
And the cool thing about this is Good Morning Ms. Foster started a hashtag called Choose a Book Tuesday. And so we are going to highlight the Teaching Buzz on Instagram, and they give their book recommendations using hashtag Choose a Book Tuesday. And we're going to also highlight Sunshine and Talk, who suggested I Don't Want to Be a Frog.
Is it chalk?
Sunshine and Chalk. What did I say?
Sunshine and Chalk. I know, I heard talk, but
I might have said
we're doing a podcast. That's what we do, talk.
So check them out, and we'll put a link in the show notes to them, and you can find their book recommendations. And check out the hashtag Choose a Book Tuesday from Good Morning Ms. Foster.
That's right. Pablo and Wes, we are out.
Signing out.
Happy reading.
Happy